So you can proceed. Once you get to the approval of the minutes, after the approval of the minutes, I'll explain what it is that we're doing here for the interpretation when you get to number 4 on the agenda.
Very good. All right, it is 7:30 on Monday, July 14th. Calling to order the Huntington Woods Zoning Board of Appeals. Can we get a roll call? Everyone wants to put their names on the record.
Present, Mike Brooks.
Vincent Verna.
Ben Falick.
Chris Gombieski.
Joe Caleo?
All right, we have a quorum. We have an agenda. Can I get a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have May 12th minutes to approve. If I can get a motion to approve as presented, or any questions or modifications.
Motion to approve? Second.
All right, all in favor of approving the May 12th minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 4 for the an interpretation requested by the zoning administrator.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, what happens here frequently, well, not frequently, but it happens from time to time, is that even though we're very familiar with the zoning ordinance, so time to time we'll ask for an interpretation from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The reason that we do that is because it's not specifically mentioned, or there may be some gray area. In this case, we have some interested parties in this, so this is an opportunity for us to go over with the Zoning Board of Appeals and take your guidance. Based on your guidance, it would determine how we enforce this. This is not a code enforcement issue. This is not a variance, not an appeal for a variance. This is simply your interpretation. Your interpretation will be how the ordinance is enforced moving forward, or whether or not you can, whether or not how the code enforcement people will look at it, how the planning commission will look at it, and unless the planning commission changes its ordinance, which could happen as a result of your interpretation this evening, that's how we're going to be moving forward. So what we're looking for is we're looking for some clarity on the definitions of accessory structures, and I'm going to give you 3 specific incidents of what it is, and we're going to ask for your interpretation on these. You already have some of our logic into why we interpreted them to be accessory structures, and under no circumstances are you bound to hold up ZBA or the zoning administrator position opinion. If you feel that it's legitimate, you can, or you can say, no, you know what, that's probably a little bit further than we want to stretch this. And if that's the case, what we may do is we may do an addendum to the zoning ordinance to include them, or we may just make note of the fact that we just don't count that as accessory structure. So you've read the materials that we've submitted. I did include materials from some residents who were affected by the decision that a certain item was and we'll get to that in a minute, but that a certain item was a structure. So at the point in time is we'll explain, we will ask for, you can ask us any questions you want. There's always public opinion. During the opinion, we have a couple people here from 2 different issues that are interested in this. They'll be able to speak on this. Again, this is not a variance, so you're not going to be giving anybody a variance for this. This is noticed as a interpretation request by the zoning administrator, which would have to happen first anyway. So because the first appeal would be to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the appeal from the Zoning Board of Appeals is to Circuit Court. So that's where that goes. It's not like the Planning Commission whose appeal is to you guys. So this is where it is with that. So what we're looking for is we're looking for structure, accessory structures, and under that there's a couple different things that we're looking at. So one is a gas fire pit that's installed in a front yard. And accessory structures by nature are not able to be installed in a front yard. They're reserved for side yards, depending on what it is, or rear yards, where they don't need permission. They just have to, go by the required setbacks. So the gas fire pit was, it's in the front yard. Again, you would have to determine that is not an accessory structure, and then if it's not an accessory structure, it stays, everything is the way that it is. If you determine it is an accessory structure, then the proponents that have it would then want to come to you, or they may wish to come to you, or they could come to you with a request for a variance and demonstrate their practical difficulty or hardship as to why they need to have it in the front yard. So that would be how that would work. The correlation between that was is that it was flagged and not allowed based on the definition of the term accessory structure includes but is not limited to a driveway, parking lot, sidewalk, swimming pool, pool equipment, tennis or basketball court, doghouse, trash enclosure, lamp post, patio, deck, or signs. So if you see where we highlighted it, lamp post, patio type of thing, is that you're pretty much creating a gathering area. But I need to be very clear about this. If this was not an attached fire pit and they pulled the fire pit out onto their driveway and put it back when they were done, this conversation would be different and they would never have gotten a violation. But because it is attached and it is in the front yard, it was determined that they had that it was an accessory structure. So having said that, we can come back to that and let's go to the second one. The second one was a freestanding planter box in the front yard. This one's a little bit different because it is a technical front yard. The yard is platted off of Pembroke, the house faces the other side street, okay? So that's a technical front yard, and the difference is that it's not in the ground. If it was in the ground and planted, there wouldn't be a problem with it. So that's how that works. Because that would just be considered planters, like a planting, planters, you know, or they would have like edging around it. The other difference with it would be is that that actually can't be moved because it would take an awful lot of strength to move that thing. It's pretty well in place. So I want to be clear about some of these things that we're talking about because they'll reach beyond the two specific items that we have for you tonight that we wanted to get clarification. The third one that I would like to take a look at is art, yard art. Somebody has a sculpture planted in the front yard, you know, like it's not going anywhere and it's too big or whatever it is, but that's art. What is that considered? Is that considered a landscape feature or any of these considered landscape features? So this is part of the guidance that we're looking for from the ZBA on this. And again, any questions that you might have would be welcome in talking this out. So again, you're not being asked for a variance here, you're just being asked to interpret the code. Again, we do have proponents we do have people in each case that are affected here. The other things are like planters, flower pots, large flower pots, do those count? What do you know, where do you want to draw the line? And the zoning ordinance never had this in mind when the zoning ordinance was written. So the other thing with the planter box to take into consideration is it's in a technical front yard. If it was in a side yard, could they have it? Not if it's an accessory structure. If it's in a rear yard, they could have it. They both could have this, and this, they wouldn't be here. But this is where they want this, and they're entitled to ask for it, although the ask is from me on behalf of whether it's an accessory structure, because if you determine it is, then we go one way. If you determine it is not, then they go home, you know, and that's fine. So it's up to you all for anything you have. At this point in time, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you if you have any questions. If the board has any questions, you certainly are required to take public participation. And again, public participation is not a debate, it's not a back and forth, it's commentary on it, and you see what you think. If you have any questions, you're certainly welcome to ask the people in the public participation. Other than that, we're here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Long day, so apologies. The gas fireplace was the one, the planter in the technical front yard was the second, or
Yeah, and
also the third?
The third one that I was throwing in there was like yard art, you know, I mean, because those are some things that people are gonna have in their front yard that in all fairness, they either are or they aren't. So what's a structure, what's not a structure? And, you know, you're gonna give us that tonight. And then also that guidance will be taken back to the planning commission, because depending on what it is that you say this evening, that may or may not change how the zoning ordinance is affected with this, because the planning commission is also looking into this. When this came in and we had questions about this, I thought it was worthwhile to not only get the ZBA interpretation, but also to look at it from the planning commission standpoint. This will also be on the planning commission agenda later this month, but it'll go with your guidance.
Got it. Okay. And let me clarify before we open it up. The planter that's in the technical front yard, is it platting aside, is it in the front of the house facing their front door facing the street, or is it
No,
just
it's in the technical front yard, not the practical front yard. The house faces this.
Okay.
If you're looking at the house and you're looking at that off of the side street, it's in their side yard.
in their side yard?
Side
where
slash
it-
rear yard.
Got it. Okay.
You can see from the photo that
Right.
it's next to a neighbor's driveway.
Okay.
That's where it's at.
Okay, well, we can, yeah, if there's, maybe just basic clarifying question before we open it up for
problem. Here.
public comment, and then we can deliberate.
There you go. Yep.
All right, so let's take comment from the public. If you can come to the podium and give us your name and street number, and then we will hear what you have to say.
Zach Rowley, 13148 Talbot Avenue. This is my wife Jessica. I saw you guys passing along. Does anybody need an extra copy? I don't know if it was what we had or whatnot.
I think
They
we-
got what you sent in.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say. We're one of the houses impacted, you know, really the biggest thing from ours, listening to Hank's kind of explanation that this is kind of a before it's kind of a more personal or property specific on this, is just looking at how the community's treated it, all the way up until what we feel like was the incidents, or one of the three that had to deal with our property. Mechanical department, you know, permits were filed regarding this plan and everything else that was going in at that time for a flower pot style object in the front yard. They were considering that to be a fixture to be attached. And if you look through the community and the document, or the kind of the little drawing that we did, kind of similar objects placed in front yards, whether they be, you know, flower planter sized, many in the community much larger than that, regardless of whether or not, you know, a single person could lift up. While the one on our property can be moved by an individual, can be detached and moved back to the garage. That's really not what the community has used for some of these objects. If you look at some of the images that we sent, there are, you know, what looks like 1,000-pound benches and art installations in the front yard that you probably couldn't move without a crane. There are similar and larger, you know, flower pots, almost identical to what we've set up in the front yard. They've been wired with electricity, they've been wired with water. Again, this is not something that also has, to Hank's comment, you know, permanent seating, structures, things out there that's, you know, bringing people in there for, you know, temporary use or observation when they're in use, no different than an art or a flower pot. And we also think that, you know, just looking at how the flower pots and different things have put out, it's never really been determinative whether or not you're removing the object every time you're using it. People are not being asked to remove benches, art installations every time they go outside to sit in the front yard bench. They're not being asked to do that with fountains, book deposit boxes, forget some of the other examples in there, but the water fountains, things like that. So we think to change that in relation to specific objects that at least I can't find a reason that they would be different in the code from what was done and, you know, what was ultimately considered by the mechanical department to be a fixture. should at least be to rewrite the code so that everybody could have a really clear definition of what that object is, what should and shouldn't be allowed, and then should be moving forward for individuals trying to put something new, not retroactive, because somebody took issue with this particular item, so.
And just to, piggyback off of that, is we thought we did the right thing by filing the permits, getting that inspected. Back to February, there was a couple of months, obviously, until the frost lifted before they could even dig into the ground for the line. So we thought that, we had done the proper way of, moving forward with that. And then, I just want to point out our letters of support from neighbors on our street who have seen this as, something that's well known.
Obviously, we give you guys a lot of pages of different things to look at. Happy to answer any questions on, but we're just trying to do a good job of kind of walking around the community and saying, hey, here's where we pulled inspiration from similar objects people had out there. And again, I really would lean on that the mechanical department also thought this was a fixture. And a big part of us getting this permit closed was, please make sure you get your fixture placed on top of your utility so that it would be, safe and everything else. And it was as soon as we put the fixture on top of it, that then we received the ticket from a different department saying, well, while the mechanical department thinks this is a fixture, we believe this is a structure or an accessory structure. And I think if there's that level of confusion even between the departments writing the tickets, that's a pretty good indicator that it's tough on the residents of the community to do the right thing and get everything done the correct way. So,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Ben, if I could just some clarification on that. When you put something like that in, and it's considered, there's two permits that are required, same as for a generator. You're gonna have your mechanical permit, you're gonna have a building permit. The reason you get a building permit is because the building permit defines whether or not the location's acceptable for what you're putting in. They applied for a mechanical permit. At that point in time, when it was applied for, the mechanical inspector didn't know what it was for. I'm not saying that's right, I'm not saying that's wrong, but there was no building permit applied for with it. So having said that, at this point, I'm not ready to throw the mechanical inspector or anybody like that under the bus for this. But what we're here for is to try to get some clarification as to what it is. I don't think listing 1,000 things in the zoning ordinance as to what is and what isn't. So that's why they say includes but is not limited to. So, and again, this is not argumentative towards them. If you say that their fire pit is fine, it's fine. And that's the way I'll have the code enforcement department take a look at that from now on. That's also the way that we'll do our permits from now on. But we needed the clarification from you on this because the way that it made, the correlation that we made at the time that we made it, made sense. So that's kind of where we're going with that. But again, anything that you say here is okay, and we'll treat it accordingly as far as that goes. But we need you to say that.
Can we talk about the word attached?
Yeah, that's the word.
Okay? When you have the gas line is attached to the house because that's where the gas comes in. It is then, the fixture is then attached to the gas line, therefore attached to the house. That was how the determination was made. When you looked at it as a lamp posts always used to be gas. And they were always, all the old ones were gas, and they had the filament, and every once in a while you'd have to change it, but they operated on gas. Now they're 99% electric, but they're also attached. So whether it was electric or gas, a lamp post or that was able to be done, it was able to be considered attached. So the difference between that and a freestanding or something like that that could be moved, this could be moved without disconnecting the gas. That was why the correlation was made from point A to point B.
When you say this, what, just so I'm understanding, what's the this?
The gas fire pit in the front yard.
You're saying that it could be moved because you just would have to detach it from the gas line.
That's a process.
I know it's a process.
Yeah.
Could and
but-
should.
What?
Could and should are two different things.
Yeah, I'm not saying,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm trying to get around, my head around the word fixture and therefore attached, and attached to what?
Attached to the gas line.
Yeah, and that strikes me as a stretch to, when I think of the conventional word fixture, the word fixture conventionally used, and I could be wrong, I'm not thinking of something being attached to a gas line. Just, I'm not. I'm thinking of something much more immovable, something much more firmly embedded in the ground. But I guess, have you checked with the legal folks to assess what does it mean for something to be a
Legal folks
fixture?
wants the zoning board of appeals to weigh in.
Okay.
I guess it would be attached because it's running through the gas
It's
meter.
theoretically attached, but
on
when
the
you think
home and
of
then-
fixtures, you're thinking of something really anchored. And I don't know if being attached to a gas line is anchored. Let me ask you this question, Hank.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the origins. I heard, obviously, from the family as to what brought this specific matter to us. But is there a problem throughout the community, or is this a one-off situation? I mean, are people
This has been
complaining?
this has been, well, this was born by a complaint. We wouldn't have come aware of it, but then the plumbing inspector also made us aware of it.
Yeah, but in terms of the
So-
community, are people abusing the definition of attachment or fixture?
I don't know that you would call it abuse, Andy, and quite honestly, I wouldn't even call this abuse.
No,
I
I'm
would
saying
call
exactly the
this-
opposite.
Yeah, I would say that this is just simply an understanding or two different points of view towards the same thing. So, our take on it at the time that this was flagged was, this is like putting a gas barbecue in the front yard. Because it's anchored the same way, it's got the same thing, it runs on natural gas, it's the same thing. So would you consider these uses that are normally done in a front yard? Okay, that notwithstanding, you still need an attachment. A gas barbecue that's in the front yard isn't something that can be readily moved and taken in and whatever. Having said that, that's not the criteria. It's one of the contributing factors that you may want to consider, but it's not the sole criteria whether it can be picked up and put away or not. Is whether or not it's actually an accessory structure. And based on what they've had, you know, with the includes but not limited to and everything on there, something's admittedly way more substantial than this, yet there's a correlation to what's on there. So that's up to you guys to tell us what to do. Whatever you say is completely fine.
Can I ask the homeowners a couple questions? Is that okay,
That's
Mr.
up to the chair.
Mr. Chairperson?
Sure.
Beat us up.
No, it's not a question of beating up, it's a question of, let's hear a little bit, and I know this is a legal statutory interpretive issue, but I just want to know the background here. Tell us about your decision-making. I'm sorry if I missed something at the outset because I was late. I forgot that it was not at City Hall. Tell us about your decision-making. Tell us about your thinking, why you put this in the front yard. Obviously, you want to be good neighbors. Just bring us through what happened and your opinion of what is happening in the complaint.
Full logic is, historically, I'm from a little further up north,
Okay.
Bay City, Michigan. This is pretty common to have either a fireplace you would bring out or, you know, a little something that not used a ton, but something if you're telling your neighbors, hey, we're over here, we're sitting, we're watching the kids, we'd love if you actually say hello, a little less, I guess, uninviting than if you're on your patio where somebody feels like, oh, maybe you're reading a book and you don't want to be bothered, you're just enjoying outside. Kind of had that down here. Talked with some of our friends who live down in Dearborn Heights. They actually kind of did similar things, and they got really excited following it. Said, hey, Zach, you're 100% right. If I sit out in front and I turn on the little gas fire pit, everybody walking by stops, says hello, knows that we want to sit here and talk. Our community over on Talbot, during COVID, that's when we moved in, everybody was dragging propane fire pits out onto their driveway, having little fires. A couple of them had wood fire pits. They drag them out. Obviously, you can't shut a wood fire pit off very easily, so they'd end up with stuff in the middle of their driveway. Mentioned that with somebody around here, and they said, well, you could always just run a gas line. thought, well, that's way better than having a propane tank that somebody could run over the line, mess with, anything else. So, there bore the plan of, okay, instead of having the neighbors who are all dragging these into their driveways and throwing lawn chairs out there, went out and found one that looked like a flower pot, said, okay, that'd be wonderful. Took down, got the mechanical permit, put a stake out in the middle of the front yard. Said, cool, we'll have this out there. We put a fire safety valve underneath it so we could shut it off over there. Also put one up at the house so that it had a secondary one we could have shut off. And then from there, just kind of done exactly what we said. If we're reading a book, we're kind of up on the patio. If the kids are riding the little electric vehicles and everything, they're all running up and down the street. We'll sit at the, up next to the fireplace. Whether or not it's on, we bring a couple of lawn chairs out. And then some of the neighbors bring lawn chairs over, sit out there with us. We watch the kids go, and if we're all sitting there talking when the kids go to bed, we kind of continue. So it's kind of turned into a nice little thing on Talbot Avenue.
And what do you know, and I'm not asking for a name, about the complaint? Like, why did this create or generate a complaint?
Not 100% sure. The complaint was actually made before we really installed it. We had actually only brought the flower pot out onto the property. It was the weekend of the big community yard sale. So had it all out there. I had probably 40, 50 pieces strung across the yard as we were working on things. Went to attach it, realized I was missing a piece. And I think we got the complaint on like that Tuesday.
Pieces of what?
A piece of the fire assembly
Okay.
that we were putting
Just wanted to make
inside of
sure.
the flower pot. Received a complaint. We only found out a little bit ago who had made it and went over to talk to him. Henry said, hey, if somebody would like to give him a call, but it doesn't appear they have an issue with it. Now that it has been installed, we haven't had a chance to follow up with them again. We only found out a couple days ago where it actually started, so we didn't really get much of a chance other than.
My
after.
final question, if you know and if Hank knows, are they objecting to the structure, or are they objecting to the fact that people are congregating in your front yard?
I'm assuming the structure because we hadn't turned it on at the time that the phone call was made. Again, I'm kind of trapped in between two spouses. The one spouse works a different, I think they both work day shift, but she typically takes like a long nap through the afternoon and then sleeps into the early morning. So I talked to him yesterday and he said, I have no idea about this. I'm gonna have to go because I haven't heard anything about it and I don't have anything if they want to call me and say, but it looks nice. Give us a ring if you guys would like to talk to them. He was gonna speak with his wife and then get back to us and see what it was to just see if we could sit down and figure out if it was a design. Obviously, it's sitting out there. We didn't have a chance to kind of finish, making it look as pretty. We've regrown the grass, but when we received the notice from the city, we kind of stopped because we didn't want to make anything worse or get into a big fight with anybody. That wasn't the goal when we filed the permit and kind of got everything going on it.
So no, we do not know the exact.
Yeah, so we don't know exactly. We might know next week.
Hank, I think it's really important to understand the complaint, whether they're complaining the fact that there is a fixture in the yard, they don't like the structure, or they don't like the people congregating in the front yard.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you, and
Okay.
the reason that I'm gonna disagree with you is because, first, there was never anything about people gathering in people's
Okay,
front
so that's
yards.
not
I mean,
an
that's
issue.
what Huntington Woods is all about.
Okay, right.
So-
Okay, I just wanted to make
So
sure.
that's got nothing to do
Okay.
with it. It was, the concern originally was about a gas fire pit in a front yard.
Okay,
And having said that, then it was brought back to me with the mechanical inspector.
Mhm.
And the inspectors do report back to me. And then that's where this whole thing went. Our code enforcement officer that we have took a look at it and, thought the same thing. So that's where we're at. Having said that, once again, this is not a variance request for this specific thing. It is, do you want to allow gas fire pits in the front yard based on the installation and whatever it is? So it's similar to putting the closest thing I can come to is the gas lamp post or a gas barbecue. That's as close as I can get you.
Can I just make a comment?
That's up to the chair.
Yeah, we can, you guys can sit, I suppose, and we'll, let you know if we have more questions.
Reading the intent of what was put into the code, I think this falls under a structure, okay? And I think the appropriate way would have been to go back and request a variance and come back to the BZA.
Well, I think what's gonna happen here, Joe, and it's interesting that the way that you bring that up. If you decide that this is not an accessory structure, they don't need the variance. They're good to go. If you decide, yes, this is an accessory structure, then this, at a subsequent meeting, would become a variance request. At this point in time, the city is staying any action until some kind of resolution happens to this. Be it that you decide this is or is not an accessory structure, that gives them their next step, would be to come back before you with their hardship and practical difficulty as to why they need to have it in the front yard. If not, and you decide tonight, hey, this really isn't that big a deal, we're consider this an accessory structure, then they're done. They're fine. They go home, turn the fire pit on, and have the neighbors over, which may or may not be wrong. And that's not our point or our intent. The intent here is to determine whether or not this falls under the category of accessory structure. And if it does, then at least we know how to proceed forward with this. Thank you, Joe.
Can I get a clarity? In my mind, what matters first is this a structure? An accessory structure is simply an accessory usage or an ancillary usage to the primary structure, correct?
That is correct. Like you wouldn't have the accessory structure without the principal structure.
Correct. So the question is, what qualifies as a structure?
Well, the driveway on Borgman was an accessory structure even when there wasn't a house there. I think that was what we decided, where they had to replace the curb. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard to parse, but as long as I've been on this, I've thought of accessory structure as a term of art that, as evidenced by this conversation, isn't totally black and white. It has some, has some uncertainty to it. So maybe that's not immediately relevant to this, but it is clearly ancillary to the house. Whether it's an accessory structure, I guess, is what we need to decide.
Yeah, and again, however you get there, that's gonna be your thought process. This just is, these types of things, and the three that I've given you are going to be not necessarily the three most common things, because with all due respect, this is the first time we've had a fire pit, a gas fire pit in the front yard to ask you about. But having said that, it's reasonable to need the clarification for this. So the difference being is that when the city comes forward and asks for the clarification, number one, it saves the appellant $300. Number two, if we have the answer from you, then we know how to enforce it, and there's also a chance that there may need to be no enforcement. That's gonna be up to you, whether you decide this is an accessory structure or not.
Can I ask one more question? Mm-hmm. To both Tank and, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
It's Zach.
Zach. How difficult, how time-consuming would it be to detach the grill or barbecue? What is it?
Fire pit.
Fire pit from the ground. Would it be something you could do in an hour or not? Or just tell me about the process of unattaching it.
It'd be 6 to 8 minutes. It's literally unscrew the one connector. We were gonna put a quick connect, just, so that it was more just like a plug-in like you had on a grill or something. We kinda, again, we stopped everything when this all started, but it would take you 5 to 6 minutes to turn one item and walk it into the garage. That's kind of one of the areas we've struggled on all this, is try to determine, okay, well, it has a utility, so that makes it different. At the first, and I apologize, because the one image I didn't put in here is I assumed there'd be a picture of our fire, or our thing, but it's the first image on our packet. It's just one of those flowers, and instead of the water and the electricity that this gentleman wired into his flower pot to kind of make everything look nice, it's just a gas connection. So you just undo that, walk it to the garage, bring it back. To Adam's comment, yeah, that top one, we don't have a rock underneath, it's just grass at the moment. But, you know, to Adam's comment, when we were talking with, on the mechanical side, it was, okay, well, we put a not quick connect on there so that it was a little more, you know, permanent, because my understanding was it was a little easier to not have it be taken on and off for, you know, kind of the safety stuff.
Hank, do you agree with that characterization? Or any reasons that
My
disagree with it?
concerns are only from, because I have no skin in the game whether or not this
Not just
is
mechanically,
there.
or-
Mechanically, that leaves a shut off and a gas line exposed out on the front
But that's a
lawn.
different issue than whether it's a structure or attached or a fixture.
No, that goes to safety, but that
It
would
goes
be
to
my
safety, which is a
concern, so
different,
if
very
we're talking
legitimate
about
issue.
with it,
But the
so.
question is, when we're thinking about the word structure or attachment or fixture, usually, in most of these examples, if not all of them, maybe all of them, have some notion of permanence. Some notion of it being ground in there so that you couldn't just in 6 minutes get rid of it. So if we're parsing words and coming up with definitions, I think that's at least relevant.
So I don't know if anyone else was on the board. The last time I recall that we considered this, it wasn't, and it was, I don't think it was it was asking for an interpretation. If memory serves, was the since departed trampoline at the corner of Humber and Nadine, which, because of how it was maybe related to the platting or because it was on a corner lot, we had to decide, was this trampoline an accessory structure? And what, as I recall, one way we differentiated was, is it more like a front yard ice rink that had to be taken out earlier that year, or like a pair of, you know, high-quality, heavy-duty Adirondack chairs that are sitting there? And we decided the trampoline, as sort of big as it is, if they can move it to mow underneath, then it was not an accessory structure. It was, sort of to your point, Andy, it was not so permanent that it would count as an accessory structure. So I'm trying to think, trying to figure out with this, yeah, it seems like, but for the gas hookup, right, if it was this exact same, I think, this same shape located thing that you know, put a quick start piece of wood in when you wanted a fire, then I think we wouldn't have an issue. I'll just say I'm like leaning toward wanting to have things like this. I used to live right up there on Boardman, on the other block there, and I think there's things in the master plan about wanting people to be in their front yards and to sort of promote the community and the neighborliness of this. It's still, I'm still trying to figure out what we land on to say, yeah, this is okay because, not just because like it's fun and, you know, it's fun too, it's fun, but that's, I don't think the fun is defined in the zoning code.
And I guess if it helps on that permanence, just on the images that I gave you guys, with the exception of possibly the actual Adirondack chairs, I think I would have mine out there faster than anyone with anything else on this list of things that are sitting out there. And again, we really did not think, as far as the flower pot was gonna be that intrusive or
Yeah.
difficult. And if the city's okay with it, I don't think that'd be a huge thing to, okay, at the end of the year, put a little decorative rock when, you know, when you're not using it for the season. You know, but I think that those would be things that, to Hank's comment, if we were going to write something to say, hey, if we're gonna have these in there, a nice drawing line, those would be great things to have in to say, hey, these are wonderful. Tough on us now, obviously.
Go ahead.
Hank, a couple questions.
Yeah.
Hank, I wanted to ask you a couple
Sure.
questions. So if I'm understanding this correctly, if someone wanted to put a couple of gas flame features, like lamps at the entrance to their walkway, or one, old school gas lamp post on their driveway, that would be classified the same as the Rowley's thing we're discussing now.
They would be classified as accessory structures.
Okay.
What their structure, what their issue is, you're gonna tell me.
Okay,
So-
yeah, because it's like,
so,
it's
yeah,
a
I
hangout
mean,
area.
The
but
answer is,
really,
we would tell them
if
no
there's a flame,
on a
yeah.
gas, on a
The
gas
hang, I
lamp.
mean.
But if you
it's-
wanted a couple flames in the yard, that would not help people, that would not cause people to congregate technically in accordance with this.
You would not be
It would
allowed
the
to
s-
have those.
Okay, but it would be the same thing though, right? As,
Well,
if-
again.
assuming
it's
this isn't allowed, that
Whether or
would-
not it's the
but-
same thing is what you're gonna determine. What it is that there's a
Okay.
gas appliance in the front yard, which is considered an accessory structure under here based on the fact that the lamp post, whether it's gas or electric, they don't allow those anymore. So
So-
since this was written.
would old gas lamps then just be basically grandfathered in today?
Yeah, until the such time that they have to be taken out or they don't work anymore.
Okay, okay, thank you.
But
for
electric's
that.
okay? If it's running, if
Well,
it's a
solar.
light bulb?
Whatever's there is there.
Right.
So, I mean, we're not gonna run around making people take out stuff. And it's just like this, to be real honest with you, we could have driven by 10 times, 100 times. A lot of our code enforcement and what the officers do is based on complaint-based.
Sure.
That's what, it's just what this is. We don't have somebody that rides around looking for things wrong with people's houses. If they happen to see it while they're out, that's fine. Most of the cases are direct, my neighbor didn't paint their garage for 25 years. The roof has a hole in it and animals are crawling in and out of it. A lot of them are, to be honest with you, more substantial than this.
Yes.
So, this is just one of the things that fits within this, or the code enforcement, we believe that that fits with that. What you're going to tell us is it does or it does not, and if you tell us it does not, then we won't enforce that as part of the issue. We may come back and get a clarification of whether or not you want that to include lampposts or front yard barbecues, because that's those are the correlations to other things that would be in the front yard that might be considered an appliance.
So, that all makes sense, thank you. And I'm not trying to play stump Hank here, because I know I'll never win that game. But, when we look at the word attached, I'm just being careful about this, because I feel like we're talking about something that'll set precedent. Is, if we're talking about attached, if electrical is attached, like gas is, then we start talking about walkway lighting. Fountains, like fountains may be self-contained plumbing, but they're still powered somehow. I feel like, if someone installs lights in their walkway, and
That's a
connected to
plug-in,
the
that's not a
house,
hardwire, and those are low voltage.
So low voltage is not,
Well, we wouldn't, I mean, we consider that a landscape feature.
okay.
And by virtue of the term landscape feature, you can also consider this a landscape feature, and therefore it's not an accessory structure, it's simply a landscape feature, and consider it no different than somebody putting a pot of begonias or something out there.
There might be okay, that's useful, go ahead.
Well, if I could just ask Hank for a clarification on that, because you said if it was electrical and it was just plugged in, I guess I would say that this is pretty similar, that it's gas, it's just, it's plug-in, no different than electrical, no different than, the
would-
water, because again, it can still be removed. And I would just ask for kind of a clarification on that.
I wouldn't consider that the same at all, because a gas line that comes out, whether it's a quarter, 3/8, whatever it is, I don't think it's bigger than that. But whatever it is that would come out is usually on a compression fitting that's threaded, that's screwed onto there. It's different because the supply for the gas comes from the gas supply for the house. So what you're doing then is you're either having to plug the end of that, which is a compression fitting, or I assume it's a compression fitting, and you'd have to plug that on the end of it in order to make that safe, so that if somebody did knock the shut-off valve, that the gas would escape into the atmosphere.
Is there GFCI requirements for the electrical?
A GFCI requirement, no.
So there's a,
Most outside plugs are on GFCIs,
So they're not
however, you're
running
gonna
straight to
find
the box.
most plugs that are put in before 2010 are not GFCI protected. Should be, but they're typically
I think
not.
we worked it out.
Okay.
So can I just make an observation again?
Sure.
So, I know Ben's a lawyer, I don't know if any of there are other folks here are lawyers, but there is a very conventional rule of statutory and regulatory construction that says ambiguity in a statute or regulation should be construed against the drafter. And to the extent that this is ambiguous, that's relevant to me, that rule of construction. And I tend to think that we should avoid conflating the issue of what's safe and what is attached or what is a fixture. Those are separate issues. And, you know, that's not to say that a future planning commission or any other body can't and shouldn't go back and clean things up and create clarity. The question that we have right here is, are we going to say that a homeowner can't do something that otherwise would go unnoticed when there is, at least in my mind, ambiguity as to what attached means, what is a fixture? And, you know, I certainly respect what Hank is saying, that unattaching it will create issues, but that doesn't go to the definition of what I think attachment is or what a fixture is. So where I stand right now is there's a pretty possibly, I would say arguably ambiguous provision. The homeowners have been acting in good faith. The neighbors, as far as we know, except for one person, haven't been complaining about it. If we are not going to be establishing a new policy forever, because if the policy is objected to, there can be clearer writing. And I'm just reluctant at this time to say, you know, you guys should be victimized by a ordinance that is arguably ambiguous. And that's where my thinking is at this time.
So, I'm leaning in that same direction. I mean, there's some aspect of it that is unambiguous, right? Like the gas that powers, that heats the house runs out to this thing that is unambiguously like in the front yard, where you can't have a pool house like we had someone wanting, not in the front yard, but I'm leaning toward how to interpret this as a landscape feature, just sort of based on the nature of it. I think it's right. It's not about safety then, or like a noise problem, because that would be a different complaint to the city, right? Or a blight violation if it had, you know, something West Nile virus kind of in the water, and it's not that. So it's and it's and it's not like it's not a fire pit that's like poured concrete into the rock, right? It's like so that's where I'm at. Thank you for letting me, you know, verbally process this on city time here. Go ahead, John.
And listening to all the arguments here, I get the feeling that this fire pit is really portable. Okay, the issue is the gas line, but that's a separate issue, I think, from the gas fixture itself. So it could be moved. Is there an issue with the gas line? I think that's a whole different topic.
Let me see if I can help you guys with the two sides of this, define it. There's really a couple ways you can go on this. you can say, no, the direction of the zoning board of appeals is this is not to be treated as an accessory structure, but is to be treated as a landscape feature and therefore not regulated under this act. That would be move one, and that takes that off the table. They can have their, fire pit. Anybody else that wants one can do it, because that would, anything you do really is gonna set precedence with this, because it's gonna be how it's determined. So so that would be the one thing. The other thing you can do is say, look, it is an accessory structure based on the fact that, is it any different really than a gas barbecue, a lamp post, that type of thing? And if you wanna hold that line, that's the other camp. So there's really only two camps with this. And whichever one you pick, there's rationale for either. I don't necessarily disagree with their opinions and what they've proffered as information. I don't necessarily agree with it. What we're doing is we're just looking for direction, and that's why we're asking for an interpretation as to how you want this interpreted. If you interpret that this is, like we just talked about, that this is a landscape feature and not to be treated as an accessory structure, then boom, there we go. We have that for direction. That also throws me in with my lamp pots and stuff like that. I am gonna ask you to be more specific on the planter that's in the front yard of the other residents, and also art, because I need to
Yeah.
get those things. Those are the three most pressing things that we have right now. So if you wanna, you don't even have to decide on this second. You can talk about the other items that are out there and come back for the whole fell swoop and say these three items are to be treated as landscape features and not as accessory structures. That's fine. But that would be the way to go.
If we treat this as a landscape feature,
Yeah.
okay, and we set a precedent, there's no telling where the people can put it, then basically in their yard.
Except for setbacks.
So it could be anywhere as long as it meets a setback.
Yeah, but in the front yard, it's gonna be a landscape feature, so it's just, it can be pretty much anywhere
Well,
as long
okay,
as
but we
it's.
got ones that have side yards too and
Right.
whatnot.
Right,
Okay?
that's correct.
If we interpret this in a way that the planning commission or the city commission doesn't like, they can just change the ordinance, right?
They can change the ordinance.
make it clearer.
But they're gonna, well, that's gonna happen anyway, because what happens is whatever decision you make,
Right.
I'm gonna be taking to the planning
Right.
commission. And then they can do that, because if you decide this should be considered a landscape feature, well, then let's say that, and then they don't have to go through this again, or the next,
But we're not a
the next act.
legislative body that's making the final decision here, are we?
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, because it's gonna go back to the planning commission with the zoning board of appeals recommendation, so if this is how the zoning board of appeals feels about it, then why would I bring anything else
But-
to you with
so-
the same?
Yeah,
Can't the ordinances be changed? Who has the power to change them?
The planning commission recommends changes to the city commission.
Okay, there you go.
So, which is what's gonna happen anyway, but based in part on what your interpretation is tonight.
Well,
But
if
this,
we
but this would be
classify-
precedent until that ordinance has been approved by the city commission.
Well, if you tell me that this is how I'm to treat these things,
Right.
that's how I'm treating them.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to say, is once we make our decision either way, that's what's gonna be as a
Right,
precedent
because
until
realistically, if you take
the
these,
ordinance has been recommended and approved by the city
if the
commission.
ordinance is changed,
If-
because
Right.
if you take
Right,
these
yeah.
three things out, the urgency to take that to the planning commission evaporates.
Right.
So if we classified, sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I ask?
Yes, go ahead.
If we classify this as a landscape structure,
Yep, landscape feature.
feature, apologies. Does that mean somebody else who's not clearly as responsible and community-minded as a Rowley's could just like put a fire pit on the corner of their corner lot right against the sidewalk? Because it's not subject to setback?
Um,
Well, it would be
It-
subject to setback.
It's possible, but see, here's the thing, with the building permit, that's why they require the mechanical permit
Right.
and the building permit. With the building permit, we tell them, no, that's not a safe place for that.
So
Well-
I'm thinking in terms of like straw men or sort of
Yeah. Where
alternative.
they've got it is not, I mean.
Right, no, that,
I-
that seems very unobjectionable.
Yeah.
I think the one, the slippery slope one way is someone putting like a big built-in brick grill with just a whole goat in the front yard,
Yes.
on it, which it would maybe not, you might get some calls, right?
We'd argue that'd be very
We-
hard.
You're selling me on
Well,
that.
yeah,
I'm
no,
just
I'm kind of,
careful.
I should have eaten
Sold.
before the meeting. And but the
Thanks,
other
Ben.
one, which I think we can segue, because we want to think about this in this other context, is overcorrecting and saying, right, you're a little free library, or you're,
Yes.
cement decorative chairs, or if they're in the front yard and they're verboten, and I just think that would
See,
cost the kind of the character of making the front yard feel like over-regulated.
if you determine that this is a landscape feature, we would add this to the other type of things that are considered landscape features and not regulated under this. Like, under this here, there's nowhere that it says a little library. And the little libraries were things that were proposed, and actually, encouraged by the city commission. Because they're landscape features, I don't have to regulate those. This would then fall into that category. So if you're inclined to approve it, that's how I would recommend it, is that you consider this a landscape
Right.
feature, period, and not an accessory structure. All I need you to say and vote on is those words.
Yeah, and we can
And-
have more discussion, or we can entertain a motion.
Well, there's
and then-
other stuff, too, but having said that, then this whole issue goes away, and they can have as many people on their front lawn around this thing as they want to. And if that's the case, we'd absolutely encourage them to, because there's no problem with it.
But again, the number of people gathering around it
That's irrelevant.
is irrelevant.
They could have
And the,
100 people on the front lawn,
right.
and I'd be happy that they had that many
Agree,
friends.
Our noise is never getting high.
Yeah.
Just to provide clarity, I'll make a motion that
Okay.
this is to be treated as a landscape feature, not
wait,
as
before-
an
before we
not
vote
as
on
an
that.
accessory
Yeah,
structure.
we can
Then
discuss after.
Then we can discuss. So there's a motion on the table?
Okay.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second before we open it back up for
I'll
discussion?
second that.
Okay,
great.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just trying to think through this, like, I know I'm taking it to infinity, but,
That's okay.
someone might
That's
someday.
what this is for, Mike.
So I'm wondering, just to kind of throw it out there for the council's, just the board's discussion or thought, would removing lamppost, just striking lamppost from the structure accessory just lamppost?
Well, we're not empowered to revise to change the verbiage.
The
of
planning commission would have to change the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So the ZBA, because Chris is our liaison to the planning commission, as he's the chair of the planning commission, when this comes up, he would take that back if you wanted to strike that from there. I would be more inclined to, because based on that, gas-operated appliances, what I would take back from this is I would take that gas appliances such as barbecues, such as lamp posts, then would fall under landscape features, because what's the difference?
And then we get into the scenario that Ben was kind of joking about, the whole barbecue in the front yard becomes legal.
Well, so one way to refine it,
So-
and we would have to have a new motion, new second, would be that it is detachable, like it isn't
Well,
built into
everything's
the.
detachable, you could take
Well-
your front porch off the house, but
Well,
No, I don't know, we've differentiated
I would.
based on that in the past.
What my recommendation would be is that if you're gonna do this, you just say that a gas fire pit is considered a landscape feature, and leave it at that, and not address that which is not here, and therefore not a problem.
this gas fire pit, I don't know what other gas fire pits are like. I'm making the motion based on this gas fire
You
pit.
can't.
Right, but it's not, but that's like more of like a
problem.
variance. We have to
Oh.
sort of
Right.
find
That's a
something
problem.
that could be applied
Oh.
and potentially abused, although I tend to think people are pretty responsible.
But again, this is going to the planning commission, and they can take a look at it, they can consider it, and they can revise the ordinance if they choose, or they can say, you know what, this whole thing is a one-off, and unless this becomes prevalent, we don't need
Right.
to address this. But they may find that what they've got going here is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and, other people want them, and if that's the case, and the residents want them, then the residents should have them.
Right, and if it's if
if
there's a
it's-
problem with the gas line, that's a different department. If there's
That's
a problem with noise,
that's a
it's a different
mechanical,
department. It's just a
that's-
thing
yeah.
in your front yard. If, so, Andy,
So you want-
are you comfortable with your motion?
Andy's motion could stand and you would accomplish
Yeah,
what it
it-
is
Right.
that you want to
It
accomplish.
takes this into account.
A gas-powered fire pit is, under our interpretation of the code, a landscape feature rather than accessory
I
structure.
find that a difficult motion to make, only because there could be an infinite variety of gas fired.
Right, that's
And I have no idea, when I'm thinking of this, I am thinking of, is it really permanently attached? And, you know, is it a fixture as I understand the word? And as it was described to me, this gas fire pit is not. Now, you know, that's why I'm saying I want to make a motion that this gas fire pit, and I'm understanding that maybe that's not permissible, is a landscape feature. I can't make that motion.
I'll go, well, then you're giving them a variance.
What?
And that's not what was advertised, and that's not what they're here for. They're here for an interpretation. The way that I would suggest that
Okay.
you do that, if you want to modify it,
Okay.
you want to quantify
Okay.
it, is to say something along the lines that gas fire pits that are not of masonry construction.
There you go.
That do not require a foundation.
Yeah.
Or anything like that, and do not.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
at
happy
that
with
point in
that.
time, you're going through that. So
So-
gas fire pits that are not of masonry construction.
Wait, gas fire
And
pits.
in that, so that would
I
require.
think that accomplishes what we.
Because otherwise, that takes away the 6-foot
Yeah.
fireplace in the front yard.
Okay, so can I say that? Can I amend
You
it
would
to say
have
that?
to, the second, and you would have to
So
accept the friendly
well,
amendment.
You can amend, you go ahead and amend your motion and we'll.
Yeah.
I
that's
amend it.
And then who seconded that?
I did.
Okay.
Can we,
I'm good with that.
do we need to specify gas fire pit? Or can we say any semi-permanent object with,
I wouldn't do
the line
that.
I want is, the line I'm thinking of is, if it has a foundation, if it's plumbed permanently, then it is a structure. If it is, yeah, if it sits on grade with no additional support, or, and any utility connections are, you know, either portable or quick disconnect, allowed by National Electric Code or Michigan Plumbing Code or a National Fuel and Gas Code, then those are irrelevant to me. It's.
Let me just, because that's the point, I get where you're going with this. The only point of that is that, like, because you're doing it as a foundation or something like that, the issue becomes is that brick pavers and paver walls and paver structures don't require a foundation. So they could build a fire pit out of that, and then you have that in the front yard. So I would, again, sometimes simplicity.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I think we can err on the simple side, and it isn't
You
in
can err
perpet-
on the gas appliance and then throw in the masonry
Right.
without a foundation or masonry required. And then what you could do is you could do that, that takes care of this issue, that also kicks it back to the planning commission to refine, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel here tonight.
So if I were to say a gas fire pit that's not of masonry without a foundation is a landscape feature not to be treated as an accessory structure, would that be okay
That,
for everyone, for motion?
you've got to withdraw your motion,
Okay.
make that motion.
So can I will.
Okay, so
can I-
we'll now,
Yes, to
if
withdraw
we're
the
having
second.
withdrawn the motion, we'll now
Okay.
entertain
I
a
move
revision.
that a gas fire pit, or that gas fire pits that are not made with masonry, without a foundation, are to be treated as a landscape feature and not to be treated as an accessory structure.
And I
That's
will-
my motion.
And I will second that motion.
Any discussion before we entertain a vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion as presented? Okay, motion passes. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. So
We
we
got-
need to walk out, we just do have the kids at
What?
home. If there are any other questions, we'd be happy to answer.
You want to stay for the art and the?
Some
and the-
s'mores for the people that are.
Anyone's welcome, there are s'mores that go.
Anytime, anytime.
All right, thank you
So,
guys very much.
and
All
then.
right. Bye, sir. Bye, Zach.
at
Bye,
this-
ma'am.
At this point, we would go to the flower, the raised bed.
Are there complaints about this?
Yes.
And so, right, there's other ones where it's just in the, it's just, you
If
know,
it's in the ground, we wouldn't even be having the conversation.
so the
But
difference is
not.
it's on stilts,
It's a raised structure.
raised structure.
How is it attached?
Just
It's just sitting on the ground.
Can you lift it up?
Maybe,
you might get dirt.
With two
maybe
people?
4 or 5 guys, but it's not going anywhere with that much
Right.
dirt in it.
I think I know.
It's like 3 by 6, something like that, 3 by 6,
Yeah.
3 by
And
5.
it's just because it's on 4 legs that it's raised? Like,
Yes.
This,
put four
I mean,
boards
this
on
seems
it.
more like a
Again-
landscape feature than the
Absolutely.
ground. I don't think we
Again,
need to deliberate for an hour on
No.
this one,
Okay,
but.
well, again, this is, because this is not, if this was in the ground, we wouldn't have said it, we wouldn't have done anything with this. Because it's above the ground and it's in that, and it could be, and again, this planter over the years has moved locations, and the answer that we had, or the conversation we had with the owner of this property was, even though that this is the platted front yard, that's his rear yard, because his house faces the side. Okay, so now having said that, there is an effect on the neighbor, so, who may want to speak to this, but there is an effect because now that's right on the side of his driveway, so when he looks out, that's what he sees. When normally, when you look down the street, you don't see a front yard with all these different things in
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
So that's one of the things. So, we don't allow hedges in front yards, so like that, why would we allow something like this? And again, I'm not taking a for or against type of thing. I'm gonna throw some things out there for you to consider with this. The other is that, why didn't he just put it in the ground and this is over?
Or just, yeah, put like the 4x8 along the
Just,
bottom,
just,
so there's
just
no.
dig the
there's no-
bottom out.
There's no
just
daylight in between.
Move it, dig the grass, put the stuff in the ground, and this goes away. And also then the neighbor isn't looking at something that's 3 feet off the ground. So
is it 3 feet off the ground?
it's, I
No.
don't know. It's, I mean, I'm gonna go with those, the most those could be is 2 by 12, so there's 2 feet, 3 feet, it may be 3 feet, maybe 2.5, it could be 4 feet. But regardless of what it is, it's whether or not you consider these types of things landscape features, or whether you consider them, a front yard accessory structure. So, you might ask for public participation too.
Yeah, we can open the floor to public participation at this time.
Good evening, my name's Gordy Oliva. I have 26038 Pembroke, the direct next-door neighbor to the property that has the planter on it. For the last 25 years, I'm a contractor in town. I've been in front of the ZBA umpteen times, and, but never for me, so this is a little bit of a different twist. I will tell you that this started out as an inquiry with the city with regard to what the zoning ordinance is, because as we know, the zoning ordinances read like a telephone book. They're not always clear and they're not always precise. So I came to the city and because of that, it got to here. So here we are now, the toothpaste is out of the tube, so now it's turned into something that needs to be addressed. I saw the picture that you have, and I was not aware of it before. I've had some extra show and tell. If you guys would entertain me and take a look at some pictures, would that be all right? Sure. So I've got 2 sets of 4 copies.
I need one set for the record.
Okay, you can have
I'll
ours.
get you when it's done? 'Cause I'll-
Yeah, as long as I get a complete set for the
Okay, all right,
record.
so you guys save it for him, okay.
Okay.
So there's 2 sets, you spread them out, there's 4 different pictures. It's not real complicated, but, so basically what you've got, I'm just opening up my set of pictures. If you look at picture number 1, which is and I'm not an IT guy, so sorry, one is half and half, so.
or two on the copy. So if you look at picture number one, I'm the brown brick house with at the end of the driveway, and the house to the left as you're looking at it, and you can see the planter from that angle, and that's from the sidewalk. So as you can see from the picture on my house, I, with a permit, am rebuilding my porch, and we spend a lot of time in our front yard. We have no houses in the front across the street. It's Triangle Park, and we spend a lot of time gathering in the front yard. We don't have a barbecue, but that's a great idea. But I don't think I'll go
you go.
there.
Pro tip.
However,
Oh, no.
no, I won't. But we do have, some seating, some gathering, some plantings. So my front door, as you can see where it is, and my side door is just up the driveway there. When this started, this is a newer homeowner, a couple years, and we've, got along great. And then a year or so ago, he started planting some arborvitaes down the driveway. So if you glance at some of the pictures, you can see the one with my pickup truck looking down the street. There's a series of, I think, 9 arborvitaes that were put there. And I really didn't have much to say about that because he's putting in plantings. As much as it's blocking my view, I can't come to you and say, hey, he's blocking my view, stop him, because I realize that that's not, an appropriate thing for me to do. But what's happened is he's sort of taken the liberty to kind of extend, and I think you touched on it a little bit before, is where does it stop? So I made an inquiry about the raised planter. Now, standing on my unfinished porch, you can see what I see from my front yard. And it's not just what I see, because again, you can't govern taste, is my belief, and what I think may or may not be attractive or not. I mean, it's rotting, aging wood with rust stains on it. It's aluminum. There's some boards put together. Prior to this year, he had this up against his house. So what you can see from the front of my house is the side of his house is what's right next to what I look out at from my driveway and from my front door. So what happens is that if you look at the pictures from the street looking up the line and just the variety of the pictures, what poses a problem is the room. He put arborvitaes up, and if my car door hits the arborvitaes, not so bad. I'm careful, but we're talking about now a hard structure that's sitting up approximately 3 feet. I could give you measurements, it really doesn't matter. It's about 8-9 feet long by 2 to 3 feet wide, the whole structure. It's not movable by 1 or 2 or even 3 people. I didn't see him move it. I don't know how many people it takes. I just had rotator cuff surgery. I wouldn't do it with 10 people. But his point was it didn't do so good against the house, which, come to find out, isn't technically a legal spot for it either. So he moved it here. So what became a problem for me is, as you can see how my cars get parked there, or my guest cars, now we can't, without being, careful or concerned about opening our door, hitting a hard surface, unloading groceries, unloading people, doing that with cars, which we always do. The other part is, I thought it was actually neat when he put the arborvitaes in. He needed a little privacy. I actually, when I snow blow, I'm an old school guy, still snow blow, I blow everything from the garage down to the street. And so as not to damage his newer plants, I keep blowing it further forward. And then once I get past his arborvitaes, then I push it off to the side, which is his lawn. But, where else we all blow it on our neighbors' lawns. We're not supposed to, but it happens from time to time. So, or I can't blow it my way because that's where my porch and sidewalk is. So what's happening is I would go out there and take all the snow and with a shovel and knock the snow off, so I would kind of preserve his new plantings. And now he's added 3 more this year, and now he's added this. And if you also look in some of the pictures, there are 2 rather large, 2 feet by 3 feet tall planters there that are hard plastic or, I don't know, some kind of, something hard. So it caused a discussion that, between he and I, and we came to agree to disagree that it's not working for me from a practical usage of my driveway. There's even question about, without a survey, which, you know, is somewhere in the annals of the city or in a flood or wherever it is, we don't know. But one of the pictures I provided has a tape measure from his planter to my driveway. Now, so what it shows is approximately about 42 inches from my driveway. I'm going to get a little detailed here. If you go to the first picture of both of our houses, down at the bottom, there's a seam in the sidewalk, and on the left seam, it says 509. Back in the day, Hank will remember, and many of you may, they used to stamp your Sidwell, the last three of your Sidwell number on the sidewalk. Anybody recall that? So, I mean, that is still there from 1924. There's actually a stamp there. So, without a survey, I'm going to bank on that because that was pretty common practice, and as a contractor, I've seen that over and over. Whether or not, you know, he's got the proper setback, I'm really not fighting that because all he has to do is take it and move it a foot or 2 feet over, and that's fine. He's within the setback requirement, and I don't have to, you know, hit my door or be as worried. You know, so that's not a big thing, but it is a thing, you know.
What's fence?
I'm sorry?
Is his fence on your,
I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
is his fence on your property?
Well, you know, I didn't want to be the schmuck next door, excuse me. I didn't want to be that guy who was going to cause World War III with my neighbor, because you got to live next to these people. When I planted my arborvitaes on the other side, we congregate in the front lawn, we have the porch, we have or the park, we say hello to people, we don't use our backyard. So we use our front yard. I planted arborvitaes on the other side, and I went to my neighbor and I said, hey, you've got 6 cars, they go all the way down to the street, I'm in the front yard in a parking lot, do you mind if I put arborvitaes up? And she said, no, fine, I get it, I see it. So that's the way I operate in terms of just some courtesy for the people you live next door. I know that doesn't govern us, courtesy, but it kind of stirred me up a little bit, and I brought the conversation. That's what made me inquire to the city at first. So, and that's what started this whole ball rolling there on the train on the track, and now the train's, you know, on the track. So, you know, just a glance of the pictures, I said to him, can you just move it over? And he was like, no, they don't grow right. He's got an entire empty side yard, which at the time, last year, when he had it up against a house, was technically illegal either, but it wasn't in my face. It wasn't an issue with putting my, you know, opening the car door and you know, snow removal, all that stuff. Now that it's here, I'll be honest with you, it's a bit of an issue, both aesthetically, but also as a builder, I'm the first to bring issues to the city that I think are not done properly from either a safety or a permit issue. Hank will tell you how many times I nudge him about, hey, these people have a permit. It's just the way I try and roll. So, you know, that's kind of what got me here. And I just thought, you know, if we're going to be good neighbors, I'm going to give him the opportunity to hear my opinion and act how he chose to react or act. And, you know, so needless to say, that didn't go great. So it is what it is. We're here now. Yes, you know, is it, the question, is it permanent, is it temporary? It's sitting on blocks of wood. There's about 7 or 8 people that could lift it and move it. It's got water inside. He waters it from his little spout, and it's got a whole watering system. And I said, just move it over there, and well, it didn't grow well over there. So now we're here. Let me just hit make sure I hit all my notes without belaboring this, because you guys really went to town on the last one, and it was amazing, so. You know, I don't know, if this goes farther, I may inquire about where it actually sits and where those trees sit, and if those trees are actually gonna be on my property, and if I'm gonna have to cut them down every time that they encroach and rub against my car. That's a further problem down the road that I hope we never have to go to. So, I guess the bottom line is, where does this end? A big piece of art, a barbecue there, you know, all of this stuff. It is technically the front of the house. It's platted that way per law, per ordinance, per statute. I think I used all those words correctly. It is the front of the house, technically. He treats it as a side. I feel like I walk out my front door and I'm looking at somebody's backyard, and I have to worry about my car and, you know, riding into it and the snow and all the practical things. I think I've covered as quickly as I could so as not to put you to sleep.
I think, Mr. Chair, if I could just add a couple things to that, too.
Certainly.
If you're having this, and you're gonna call this a landscape feature, part of the thing that the planning commission is gonna have to take into consideration is if this is a landscape feature, then are they limited in size, or can this guy put 30 of them because they're landscape features on the side? So this in the front yard, not unlike the other one, this one's a little bit different in that, to Mr. Oliva's point, this is crept down towards the city sidewalk. So you've got pot, planter, pot, does another planter go next? I mean, so what is it? So any recommendation that you would make, would have ramifications based on what the planning commission is gonna allow, because this, again, is part of the ones that was gonna end up at the planning commission for a look at them for their ordinance. So that's the other thing. While he's got that, yes, by the driveway, and you're not allowed, there is an ordinance that says that you, and I forget the exact amount, even though I had a hand in writing it, of the distance from the side of the driveway, that the person has to be able to open their car door unfettered by that. So, to the extent that he can, or that he may or may not drive a bigger car, it doesn't make a reference to that, it makes it a matter that they can do that unobstructed. So those are the things that he has, and again, I'm gonna just go briefly to what it is. He's walking outside of his house, and his view is different than anybody else's because he's looking at what's being treated as the back of a house when in fact it's the front of a house. So that's, did I get that right for you, Gordy?
Yes,
You're looking out-
yeah,
he's
it's the
walking out
front or the
the
side,
house.
it's the front of my house and the
Right.
front of his
And
house.
typically, when you look down the front of the street, you have a fairly unobstructed, except for a few plantings that are in ground. If this was in ground and all this was in ground, we wouldn't be having the conversation at this point in time, because number one, it'd be about 2.5 feet lower. And two, he'd be able to do that whether it's a front yard or not. So this is flagged because this is considered, based on the size and the build and the way that it is, an accessory structure. What you're gonna tell me again is this is either an accessory structure or this is a landscape feature, and that's what you're going to tell. Now, regardless of whatever it is that you tell me, this is not gonna stop the planning commission from revisiting some of these issues.
If he came and said, I want to put a hot tub in my side yard, but because my house is platted differently than it actually, right, the house faces Concord?
We would tell them no, and then they would have to come to you.
No, that's what I mean. If he came asking for a variance, and we said, well, right, that is your yard. It happens to be on, if you go back to the original platting, it's platted to Pembroke, and the neighbor's house is both platted to Pembroke and faces Pembroke. This is a corner lot on with you know, in the curvier part of the city, so it is your practical front yard. It's your front yard on the old platting, but in terms of the street number is Concord, or the front door faces Concord?
It's Concord
Right.
address.
So that's their whole, that's their whole yard, right? Because the house backs up to,
Well, if I may, on the opposite, so this would be the west side of the house facing Pembroke toward, so if you go east on Concord and you go to the east side of his house, he's got a full yard with furniture and maybe a barbecue. I don't know what he's got, but that's where they gather. And this is just open yard until he's done a little bit of
The
landscaping.
thing with the hot tub analogy is that that would be in violation of a couple things. One, it would be a pool in the front yard, then you have another one because you got a fence, because you got to enclose it with a fence, so now
Okay.
you've got two.
hot
So-
tub's a bad example, but we have made it, I'm
Barbecue?
fire pit. We've had plenty of times, we've had things where someone wants something in what, from a real life, day-to-day standpoint, is their side or backyard, but the platting says it's the front yard, which is here, again, it's not him here asking for a variance, it's us deciding.
He's
if
not even
a-
here.
Right.
But this-
If a raised bed that's on legs, as opposed to just being, a flower, like a flower bed that just happens to be enclosed by some wood, is an accessory structure rather than a landscape feature, at first blush, you think, oh, it's more landscape-like than a fire pit, but we're sort of seeing the ramifications of that for the neighbor, which is what this is all sort of about.
If I may add
Well,
also,
yeah, okay.
if, in one or two of those pictures, there's a variety of different upright wire, trellis, cage features, not features, but to hold the plants up. And, he changes them based on the size of the plants and whatever he's growing there. So you can see in there, I think, there's a.
Picture three.
Picture three there's some silver ones, there's some, picture 3 has a large, it goes up taller than me. I mean, you could see it, that's a big mesh grate
Yeah.
that goes up there.
At that
Picture,
point, that's taller than his truck.
yeah, picture 2 has a round gate in one of the flower pots to hold up his herbs. He's a brilliant herb gardener,
Right.
so, but,
All right, well, here, let's go to Andy.
So, Gordy, you're a mensch's mensch. We've known each other for years. You're the epitome of someone who's civic and community-minded. And in many ways, this matter couldn't be more different than the prior one. This is a situation where, as I hear it, someone's acting unneighborly. That was not the case in the last one, not you. You're certainly a good neighbor. And this is a matter in which the actions of your neighbor are potentially causing or are causing inconvenience or damage to you and your family. And so, in many ways, this is very different, this matter, than the prior one. But, and I'm sorry to think about it and look at it through a legal lens. I'm looking at the ordinance, and I'm looking at the word attached, and I cannot get my head around any definition of attached when there's not some type of permanence. And if it's not, cemented in or permanent in the sense that I at least conventionally think permanence means, it's up to the planning commission or the city council to draft a clear and unambiguous ordinance that addresses the situation, which I believe is a situation. I think that the planning commission and I think that the city commission should look at this. This is not the type of conduct that we, I think, want in this neighborhood. But I don't think that the statutory or the regulatory language that we're asked to look at tonight is the solution to the problem. It's akin to trying to, squeeze a round peg into a square hole. It's just not the fit for me. And so I think it's very regrettable, this situation, and you're handling it beautifully. But someone tell me why I'm wrong. just can't get my head around that this is something that is a fixture, that is permanent, that is attached in the way that I personally conventionally think of those words.
To respond,
Okay, before we do this, you
Right.
guys gotta go
I'm
through
sorry.
the chair if you wanna,
Yeah,
because this is not a debate.
Right, no, and appreciate the discourse. Do we have other members? And we should be also be mindful
I
of
just
that,
have one
Joe.
question. This right here, if, as it is, would that meet the requirements of the landscaping in our code?
Would it meet the requirements of landscaping? No, we called it an accessory structure,
Yeah.
so until
No,
you tell us.
if we make this a landscape feature, would it meet the code?
If you made that a landscape feature, then yeah, if you're deciding to be enforced as a landscape feature, not as an accessory structure, we wouldn't do anything with this.
Okay, so,
Unless the planning commission says, but, you know, here's the thing, you can't go make retroactive ordinances to get one thing taken care of, it doesn't work that way.
right.
So it would be that you would determine this, even if we came back and we passed a new ordinance 6 months, 3 months, 4 months from now, we're not going back to this guy and saying, hey,
It's unfortunate.
Well, yeah, and I'm trying to picture, I mean, again, the scene, it's very, you have this kind of sticky situation. This same shape, height, I'm not even gonna call it a raised bed, because I think raised beds, we're often talking about stuff where the wood is on the grass but it's elevated. That if this were just, on Talbot, like the last folks are just in a more, conventional 50-foot lot, and it was next to their walkway in their front yard, would we care? Like, at that point, it really seems like a landscape feature. The issue,
right.
I think here is, it's just uncomfortably close to the property line, or possibly over the property line. So, yeah, I think I won't speak for Andy, but I think what he was saying is like, interpreting this as an accessory structure isn't the right solution to this problem.
Right.
It's
I
like,
mean,
you
if
have a
he's encro-
hammer, and
if he's
this
encro-
is
if-
not.
If he's encroaching, he's encroaching.
Right.
And
That's
there-
a
there-
civil matter. though.
Right, so it's like, I'm just looking at what we're asked to look at, which is specific language, and apply the facts as we're hearing them to the language and see whether this is or is not an accessory structure. Again, yeah, I just don't see it, but I want someone to tell me why I'm wrong.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Do you have something?
It's just an observation. And I do agree with you in that sense, but I mean, if you look at this, the fence is way closer to your driveway than this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is gonna impede you way more.
oh, and it does.
It does, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But we have, obviously,
That's
there's
in a
rules.
rear yard.
Yeah, it's a
We
rear yard.
can put that on the property line. and-
So,
It's in a rear yard because of where how far the
Yeah.
house goes?
Right.
Well, it's actually in the house next to his, that's technically their side yard,
Right,
okay? So
because,
if
yeah,
he
side
put
yard
the
is
fence
the
up,
house.
it's technically in the rear yard, because that would start roughly at the back of his house, and I don't know, semantic gymnastics, I don't know, a foot, 2 feet, whatever it is. But having said that, I think the issue with this is more, not even so much the fence or anything else, is whether this, when you walk out your front door, is in the front yard of an accessory structure. If you can't get there and you wanna call it a landscape feature, then same as the last one, you should do it the same way, and then the planning commission can take it up. Having said that, whatever you determine, if you determine that this is okay, that thing's gonna stay there until, by this other gentleman's good graces, he decides to move it.
Well,
Right, or the survey.
that
So-
is the solution. I guess my question is, Gordy, is that possible? For him to reconsider and take into account your feelings and take into account maybe what he's hearing here tonight?
I will paraphrase his words, because I can't quote them. I wish I wrote it down. I'll consider your opinion and your position. Give me some time. Well, maybe we'll move it next year. I don't know. I said, well, if that's supposed to bring a warm fuzzy, sorry, it's not doing it. So that was his response. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately, you know, we can't legislate good neighborliness.
No, I agree.
And I just hope that he considers that going forward, when thinking about what he has placed in your field of vision, near your driveway, et cetera, property
Sure.
line.
So in the interest of time, would entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Somebody,
I'll move that the, what are they called?
A freestanding planter box.
Elevated,
Planter box, you can say
That freestanding elevated planter box are a landscape feature, and not to be treated as an accessory structure.
I'll second that.
any discussion before we vote? Okay, all, go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
I can't see that a planter box is a landscape structure. I know it's like growing plants and stuff like that. I know that it's not a landscape structure. It is a agricultural structure, but I don't know that it's a accessory structure or whatever. There's a lot of structure.
Yeah,
But it's a landscape feature though, right?
No, I
well,
don't
no,
think-
he thinks it is.
I don't
which
think it's a
guess that
landscape.
would
I don't
be-
think it's a landscape feature.
You're saying it's
Uh,
a structure,
I-
not a feature.
It's a structure, not a feature.
No,
But but I can't get to the point where it's the accessory structure
Okay.
that, like, by that different definition. Cause I don't like the idea of saying that we're gonna have these planter boxes everywhere. Cause I don't even like the ones that are in the ground, to be honest with
Right.
you. Like somebody puts like 8 of them in their front yard, I don't even like that, so.
And my point to that is, that's an issue for
Right, I
the
know,
planning
that's,
commission.
right, that's not
And it
our-
is an
but-
issue. But we're applying the language that we're
Right,
looking
yeah.
at right here, and the key word, as we started off this whole conversation, is attached.
Yeah, it's
So-
it's not attached, so yeah, that's where.
So just for the sake of the argument, it also is having a fixed location on the ground. So, but aside from that, this may be one of those where you vote yes, you just vote
Yeah.
no,
right.
you know? And I mean, that's it.
I mean,
You need
it's
4
such a gray
votes.
area, like, cause it's not,
Yeah, and we're not, it's not based on height, like a fence, like there's
Right.
this much clearance. It's a kind of a riddle, like we're teasing out a riddle. And, I mean, I think, I have trouble, it's weird, it's because like a planter, I'm sorry, like a garden bed that's just in the ground, that's surrounded by lumber, right? That's more permanent, arguably, because it's in the ground, but it's allowed. Like, that's not on the table right now.
There's no question, and there's already been case law
Right.
that's been, that's
Is
accepted.
is it possible that this particular thing we're looking at is neither a structure nor a landscape feature? I'm just gonna go there, because it's.
what is it?
It's
So a
for
structure-
purposes of this decision and for my direction.
Get
that you
treated
guys are gonna-
as.
We have
I
to.
think we have to.
We have to
it's a-
treat
it's a
it as
dichotomy.
Which is
one or the
different than
other.
saying it is.
Yeah, so we're trapped in this binary for this evening.
Again, it might not be a landscape, but being asked to treat it as one, for purposes of
If we
what
had
the
to
city,
bucket it,
the
pun
planning
intended.
commission's gonna do.
So, okay, well, any further
So
discussion?
I would like to amend, has it
Oh,
been seconded, to say treated as in my motion, rather than is.
Would you mind restating it for the record?
Can I?
We will allow a revision, a
Okay.
restatement of the motion.
I would move that, what is it again? Elevated, what are we calling it?
Elevated planter box.
That the elevated planter box are to be treated as landscape features and are not to be treated as accessory structures.
Second?
I second it.
Okay. Any discussion, or Hank, did you have something before we vote? Okay.
Can I make an appeal, one, or just, or no?
We have not officially closed public comment, so go ahead.
Okay,
and
thank
then
you.
we'll-
I see where we're going, so I'm going to make one last appeal. As someone had mentioned, In one of the pictures where the backyard fence is very close, we park back there. I'm sure many of you have the same issue in single-lane driveways. But the only way for us to both get out without playing the car shuffle is to park back there. So what this is for doing is further aggravating the situation that I'm presented with. I bought the house of my own volition. I understood the circumstances. We park back there and we have to turn sideways to get out. This just further compounds that issue by extending the wall on the side of my driveway, limiting my access.
You have a problem, we just don't think you have an accessory structure problem. Well, I won't, until we vote, I won't speak for the.
But I
speak
would
for the
hope
group.
that your neighbor watches this hearing,
Oh, and-
Watches what?
this hearing.
Oh, he
on
does.
notice.
He does, because the last one, he shared with me
Okay.
all of the events, because I missed it.
all right, so, all in favor of the motion as presented, amended, seconded?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstaining? Okay, and one abstaining, so that's
So I've
our
got 5
interpretation.
to 2.
Which,
Voted, yeah.
The other thing that
Thank you,
we have
all right, Gordon,
is
thank you.
Yard-
Godspeed,
Gordy, thank you.
Godspeed, yeah, appreciate
yard
it.
art.
Yard art,
Oh,
yes.
no.
You've already put your computer away, so
It does, I can't get reception here.
Okay.
Anyways.
So do you want you want an interpretation on that this evening?
Yes.
Okay, is yard art broadly defined an accessory structure or a landscape feature?
It all depends
Thoughts?
whether it's anchored.
Yeah.
I mean, just coincidentally, we're walking down Ludlow and there's this cute little, statue, this bronze statue of a boy with a golf club. You know that? By the-
Yep, no, well,
Love it. I said to Stacy, I wanted a bronze Charlie Brown in our front yard, and she said, well, you're not gonna have me as a wife if that's the case. But she said, put it in up north, and if you ever buy a house up north. But the point is, how can we, make a single opinion on yard art when it can take so many different permutations, affect people in so many different ways, and be so differently physically connected to the ground? So I would say, let's do the same thing we did with the, gas fire pit, and say, if it is not cemented in or permanently affixed, it shall be treated as a landscape feature.
that sounds like a motion to me.
Is there
Thoughts? Go ahead.
Before we vote,
Yeah.
is there a beautification committee or a standards committee? Like, cause if someone fills their yard with a bunch of ugly stuff, is there a process or a way the neighborhood could kind of not allow that?
No.
It's hard, it's a taste, there's no
The-
accounting for taste, as my
The
dad used
answer
to
is,
say.
right, you can't legislate taste, and it's like
What's art?
Shel Cohen used to say, the only taste he has is in his mouth. But the
Right.
issue then becomes, which the planning commission is gonna have to address, how many?
Yeah.
And what can you have?
up
Because,
to
you know,
them.
if somebody puts 25 different art things in there, does that count a garden gnome?
There's somebody
Does
that has
that
25.
count?
Yeah.
Some people in here have very expensive art in their front yard.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And
too.
they're absolutely on foundations because they simply have to be.
Right.
So, to that, one of two things is you say that yard art is acceptable and recommend to the planning commission that they consider no more than 1 or 2 pieces in a front yard is acceptable. And then you count anything that's not, with the foundation as a landscape feature like your garden gnomes. You could do something like that. But with respect to that, the planning commission could address that, and then whatever goes in between now and then is whatever goes in between now and then. So.
I mean, art is such a, we're surrounded by some lovely art here, right? It's
Well, it's
affixed,
subjective because somebody could say that planter box
The
is
planter box, exactly, this fire pit is
art.
art, is, right, this is my performance art, or my, what, so I mean, do you need the word, do you want the word art, or it's really more like sculptures, or like, or decorative I don't know.
If you want to get more defined than that, you certainly can.
Is there a piece of air quotes art that has come to gotten unwanted
No, it's
attention?
just reasonable to assume that it may,
Sure.
because I will tell you that, and I'll use Huntington for an example, there's some really cool stuff on some
Yeah.
people's lawns.
I don't think we need a motion on this. I mean, I think we've given just as much guidance as the planning commission needs, because we've established a clear basis of our decision-making, which is permanence, connectivity, attachment, foundation, cement, that type of thing.
So you would choose not to
Yeah,
address
they've got the guidance that they need, and they're asking us, if anyone is asking us, to opine on something that is so, infinite in its variety. What is art, as you're saying, Ben? I just think any motion would be not helpful.
Are we allowed to leave without making a motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It was just- we were- I'm
Besides the
just-
doors, I was seeing
I'm
if the
I'm
doors were
asking, I
bolted.
got a key.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just asking for the interpretation, because that gives us the direction. So
Right.
and I don't mean to speak for Andy, but I think where he's going is that based on the interpretations that they've received on the first two objects, they would prefer to leave this to the planning commission
Yes.
to tighten up.
Yep.
Well, unless someone makes a motion, then we won't.
Well, you
we-
can make that consensus, and that would be.
Consensus.
To defer based on the criteria
Well,
of
to,
the
to,
other.
to, that the planning commission should address what other items should be in there and what items should not. And
Yeah.
if they wanna list them specifically, that's fine. But I will tell you that, similar but not limited to is a standard catch-all phrase that's always used. So,
I just think we've given the planning commission plenty of
So-
guidance
Okay.
tonight.
I don't disagree, but I think you have to, at least, we would be remiss if we didn't bring it
Sure.
up.
No, and there's always gonna be.
Because I
colorful-
consider like Adirondack chairs, stuff like that, I consider that landscape stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't even bring that.
Right. Okay, do you want to put it in the form of a motion, or
really
no,
don't.
we're just
I don't
going to
think
be
we- I
on
think
record
I
as
think you're probably better off just
deferring to the, planning
If you wanna make a motion, you can defer the rest of the items to the planning commission for their consideration. And call that good, and then that's
I'll make
not
that motion.
specific.
Okay.
So
all
that's my
right,
motion.
second, all in favor of the motion, aye, opposed, none, abstain, okay, motion passes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Oh, I'm
adjourned.
sorry, all public, any other business, or?
There's no other business, and there's,
And-
doesn't appear to be.
and I will call for general public participation, hearing none, motion to adjourn,
Second?
second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
we
Thank
are
you.
Chris,
done.
Chris is
Nine-
gonna be busy.
Was that?
I just told Chris he's gonna be busy for.